Hi witches, welcome to the Witching Week. Today is episode 136. In today's episode we are going to be looking at plants associated with deities. We're going to be looking at some trends of the 90s. I've spoken a little bit about this on Instagram this week, and we're going to be taking a look at Valentine's Day. So grab a cup of tea, put some incense on, get comfy, and we'll explore the Witching Week. Hi everyone, welcome back. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. I'm Ren, I'm known as the Cemetery Witch, and it's Friday again. I cannot believe it. It whizzes round so quickly. I best tell you what I am drinking and what I'm burning because I will forget. The brain is not working particularly well. It's been one hell of a week and we're going to get into that. So today I am drinking Twinings Glow, which has cucumber, strawberry, green tea and aloe vera. So I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to get on with this one. It's been steeping for a while. I'm going to try it soon. And I am still burning the Ayurvedic agar wood that I was telling you about last week. I thought there was only a few of these in the range. I thought there was like 4 or 5, but as it turns out, there are absolutely loads of them. I really consider this to be a good quality incense. I'm absolutely loving it. So that's my vibe for this week still. What have you been up to the last week? Where have you been? What have you done? What have you discovered? How has it been? Well, last weekend on Imbolc, we celebrated Christmas, which sounds really funny, but because my husband and I were so poorly on Christmas and for the entire time, my mum and dad, bless them, they threw us another Christmas day. So we had a Christmas meal and we played some games and things, but it was really, really lovely. But it was really, really unusual doing it on Imbolc. Then, well, actually it was the day before, because we were busy with my parents, we actually visited a little sacred well that's 2 minutes from my home. It's really, really close to the road, but blink and you'll miss it. So we had a little look at that. It was all flooded and full of water, as it should be. So I was thinking about Imbolc and why is it we visit sacred wells and springs? And I wondered if any of you knew. Well, there are several translations that have been put forward for Imbolc. The most common one is in the belly, but it may also mean to wash or cleanse oneself. So this is where this idea of visiting sacred wells and springs comes from. It's a traditional activity. You always see it listed in people's magical correspondences, along with things like lighting candles and fires, because obviously this idea of the light coming back. But yeah, also visiting sacred wells and springs, and I'm really lucky in that there is a lot in my area. Of course, Bridget, she will visit virtuous households and leave her blessings upon them. Not sure whether that happened this year or not, but certainly we got out to a sacred well. I didn't do any washing there though. I didn't wash myself. It was a bit cold for that, but yeah, it was lovely to be there, and it was lovely to see the snowdrops that are out at the moment. One of the other lovely things that has happened this week is I got my copy of Pagan Dawn magazine, which is the Pagan Federation journal. I don't know how many of you receive this. I absolutely love this. I am hyped for spring after receiving this. Just the cover makes me feel very, very spring-like. It does still have that Imbolc energy as well, I suppose, with the pale shades of blue, but there are some really, really lovely articles in here. There's one on city, witchery and the spirit of spring. There's some recipes, there's doors and thresholds in folk witchcraft. There's what is magic and why does it matter? And this has been a real tonic this week. I'm only a couple of pages through. It takes me a long time to get any reading done, but it is just even flicking through it and looking at all the pictures and looking at the titles has made me feel really, really hyped for spring, and it has cheered me up. It has been an awful week, hasn't it? Let's face it. This is a personal note now, and it's not very often I talk about the news and the big bad scary things that are going on in the world, but sometimes we do need to stand and we need to talk about them, and we need to bring people's awareness to it. So as you've all seen, we had the release of the Epstein files this week, and it has been so awful and depressing, not just to think about what certain people, you know, women and girls in particular, have been through, but to just realise that we are run by a group of evil people, and we'll still keep getting up and going out and working and paying our taxes. It's really, really awful, and I feel it's right for me to bring this up for the victims. I'm not going to go into any of the details. We're not going to do that here. I have actually done a video over on Patreon about calling your power back, how to deal with the, you know, the emotional side of this, and just the unregulation of our nervous system and our feelings. Seeing all this, of course, it's, you know, if we're just spectators and we're just learning about this, having never been through this, then we are very, very lucky. But it's just been really, really hard to see with your own eyes, with my own eyes, that we are run by a cabal of the worst people that you could ever imagine, that would just do unthinkable things. And we have to talk about the victims. So I'm really glad that so many people are sharing the information of what's in those files. I am aware of a lot of people using them to create content, which is not so good, but yeah, I just think we do need to be aware of the terrible things that are happening in the world. We need to try and bring our light forwards at these times. We need to find the good people, the caring people, the helpers, as they've been sort of described before. And whilst I don't understand these heinous acts, I kind of get it a little bit as well. I have met some people in my time who are absolutely ruthless, complete psychopaths, and so I can imagine it's not much of a step from, you know, some of the things people do to some of these really awful things, because if you don't have a heart and you don't have a soul, then what's stopping you? It's just really awful, really, really depressing. And yeah, it's left me feeling really, really sad and really quite depressed. I feel very flat after just being alive and finding out these things. I don't even have the words today, to be honest. I really, really just feel like crying. And as a mother of, you know, 3 girls, 2 of them are my stepchildren, but, you know, as a mum whose thoughts and feelings are protection of children and of your own children as well, it's been a really, really tough pill to swallow this week, and I'm sure you all feel the same. So I just want to light a candle in today's episode just for the victims, and all of the people that have been caught up, all of the innocent people that have been caught up in this horrible, horrible situation. Sorry, I don't have my matches. It's not the most magical way to light a candle, but the intention is there. The candle is for them, and I'm going to leave that burning today. So I thought it would be really nice for us all to share something positive, not to forget, not to erase what I've just spoken about, not to be dismissive, but to bring our light forwards into the world today. Other people read the comments when they leave comments, so it would be really, really nice if you could comment something that you've seen this week that's made you laugh or smile, perhaps a kindness that someone has paid you, perhaps you've done a random act of kindness, perhaps you've seen something really beautiful this week, you might have had some good news or some good news that you've heard, some other positive thing. I think it would be really, really nice if we could share some good things. I have been given some support this week with something, and I really, really appreciate the wonderful support I've been given. And also the situation I faced where I was being given that support, the other person that I had to deal with as well was really, really lovely and really supportive. So there are lots of good people out in the world who care about other people's feelings, who care about not hurting people, just at the very minimum level. I mean, the things that we've read about this week are just absolutely mind-blowing because you just can't get your head around it. So there are people out there that wouldn't even dream of hurting your feelings. If they knew that they'd hurt you, they would be gutted. So we have to remember those people, and we have to keep embodying the good traits and the good things that we want to see in the world. So this week, moving on to a slightly more positive topic. Yeah, I've got my candle lit. I'm not going to forget. It almost feels bad doing the witching week, actually, bearing in mind what has gone on. Trying to carry on with everyday life feels very weird at the moment. But in the week on Instagram, I've been talking about 1990s witchcraft. Did any of you practice back then, or were you starting to sort of get into witchcraft, or you're aware of an alternative lifestyle? I don't know, but I remember it. I was very young. I was in my teens, and I was just setting out. And witchcraft back then had a very, very different vibe. It had a texture, as I sort of described it, which is the only way I could think to really encapsulate what the 1990s was all about in witchcraft back then. It's very difficult to explain to someone who knows witchcraft but came much later. It was quieter, it was more tactile, it was very intentional. It required a lot of patience because we did not have much in the way of resources. It was really difficult to get your hands on books. There wasn't much out there in the way of tarot, and if you did find a shop that sold tarot, a metaphysical shop, that would be really, really unusual just to have the shop. But in there, you might find that the only tarot deck would be the Rider-Waite-Smith. You didn't have things like, I've chosen this pink candle to represent love and care and healing and all the lovely things that are associated with the colour pink, but you wouldn't be able to get pink spell candles back then. It was literally impossible to get what you needed. So it was very much household items. So you would use like an everyday household candle for a spell. Access to supplies, people, information, events, working magical groups. It was all really, really difficult. They were not as readily available as they are now, and things were a lot more secretive. Witchcraft was done in the bedroom. It was hidden in a shoebox under the bed, especially if you were a teenager. And the information that you found felt earned. I've got spells where people have photocopied a spell typed up on a bit of paper, and you'd be really lucky to get a copy of that spell because it was really difficult to get things printed and copied back then as well. Occult shops were like pilgrimage sites. They were few and far between, to be honest. I was quite lucky. We did have one in the area that I grew up. But I can't really remember about the surrounding towns. But you would go in there and there wouldn't be an awful lot on offer. There wouldn't be like loads and loads of books, loads and loads of incense, loads of candles, loads of crystals, loads of tarot decks. You go in there and it would be just like one thing of each, dragon's blood incense, and that was literally it. You might have maybe a little bit of amethyst and a bit of clear quartz. That was it. It was a different world. It really, really was. And yeah, it was very solitary. It was very hard to find other people, and especially in smaller places. People didn't really advertise that they were witches. We didn't have social media back then. We might have had the internet, dial up, but back then it was things like chat rooms. So the Children of Artemis, for example, witchcraft organisation, they came in around, quote me if I'm wrong, but I think it was about 1995, somewhere around then. And their website initially, there was a little bit of information, but it was the chat rooms. And I met many people there, many people that I know today and have met in person and have known for a very long time. For example, my friend, the artist Neil Geddes-Ward, met him back then in the Children of Artemis chat rooms. And it was just completely different. social media was different. Well, we didn't have it really at that point. The internet was different. So yeah, there weren't social media personalities and pages and resources to follow. Completely different. So I've really enjoyed taking a trip down memory lane this week, talking about that. And of course, alongside that, there were some other trends that just really complemented things for those of us that were on a path, on a witchcraft journey. So for example, the celestial trend, the sun, moon and stars, a lot of royal blue, a lot of gold. We saw this everywhere. So perfume, I still have the sun, moon and stars perfume, which is in like a blue bottle and a gold top. We had pictures and cushions and duvet covers and dangly ornaments, so things like wind chimes and sun catchers. There were like fabric wall hangings and throws, stuff like that. A lot of like soft furnishings, which I guess were easier to produce. Those sort of wall plaques that you'd get of like a sun and a moon that you would put up on the wall, made out of plaster and painted with like little gems and things in, candle holders, that kind of stuff. I didn't have a lot. I was a teenager in the 90s, and I suppose I didn't have much in the way of money. I just had a little bit of money that I used to earn. My parents didn't have a lot of money either to just sort of spend on things. So yeah, I didn't have a lot. I had some earrings that I still have, and I had some other bits and bobs, and I've still got some of my original witchcraft items. Like for example, I have got a incense holder. I will show these at some point, but yeah, and I've still got my original tarot deck as well. So yeah, a very interesting time that sticks out in my memory. The clothes at that time as well were brilliant. So if you were witchy, there were a few witchy clothes available for a little while, but people kind of wore witchy clothes as the trend for a little while in the 1990s. So there were things like black velvet chokers. You might have like a little gem on, or it might just be plain, with sort of like lace bell sleeve, long sleeve tops. There were long skirts, sort of like what we called hippie skirts back then, long hippie beads. But it had that witchy sort of witchy 90s / goth / hippies kind of feel. It wasn't all out hippie. It had that sort of darker twist to it. So it was absolutely fabulous. Lots of velvet. You'd wear your Dr. Martens. I can remember wearing a Nirvana t-shirt, so the black one with the yellow smile on, with Dr. Martens and with a long flowery skirt and beads. I just loved that vibe. And yeah, I can remember eyeliner, except I was like really chubby and I had really bad acne, and there isn't many photos of me from that time because they've all been either lost or destroyed, long stories. But I do remember from some photos, there's a couple kicking about, and yeah, I looked terrible. But my clothes were on trend. And then like a grungy cardigan, so kind of like the one that Kurt Cobain would wear. This was the era of grunge. So looking back, like when I have thought about the 90s, I've kind of thought, oh, that was a shit time. But actually, when you actually think about it and you go into the nuts and bolts of it, actually, it was a complete vibe. And I really wish I could go back. I wish I could go back and look at everything. Look at the clothes, look at what teenagers were like, look at what books we had available, look at the metaphysical shops with my eyes that I have now, and just see what the differences were. Obviously, I've remembered my version of that and my experience of that, but I'd like to be able to go back and see with adult eyes what that time was really like. So yeah, absolutely fascinating and fantastic. A real trip down memory lane this week. Let me know about your experiences in the 90s of witchcraft and trying to find resources and books and candles and things like that. Maybe it was different for you where you were. So I've been thinking about plants a lot this week. So the snowdrops are out. I've also seen some lesser celandine. I never know how to pronounce that word. I must look that up. I always forget. I learn it and then I forget, my short-term memory, and then we get back round to when it's flowering again, and I can never remember what it's called, but it's lesser celandine is how I would pronounce it from the south. but maybe it is lesser celandine. Anyway, I've seen some of that this week. A bit early, I think. I've seen a lot of people saying that the snowdrops are early for them. Ours have been out, ours have been flowering. I have been thinking about plant deities. I've been thinking about this connection between a deity and their associated plants, herbs, flowers. And it got me thinking, I wonder how many of you that work with a deity have some particular plants, flowers, herbs that you are drawn to, and if so, are they connected to the deity you work with? I'd love for you to have a look and let me know. I do have the theory a little bit that this is the way it works. You will be drawn to the things that are associated with a deity that you're working with. I could be wrong. A lot of deities do have a particular plant or plants that are associated with them through folklore and all kinds of magical lore. I thought I'd give you some examples in case you don't know what I'm talking about. So for example, Venus, which is a Roman deity, she is associated mainly with the rose, but she's also connected to the apple, and she stands for love and sensuality. She's connected to Friday, of course. And so I just wondered, those of you who follow and honour and revere and work with Venus, do you happen to love roses maybe? Odin, who of course is a Norse deity, his tree is the ash tree, of course, Yggdrasil, and this stands for wisdom and sacrifice. Obviously Odin hung himself from the tree, and cosmic order. And we could come up with, again, lots of examples. Athena, who is Greek, her plant is the olive tree, and that is connected to wisdom, peace and prosperity. And then we have Bridget, a Celtic goddess who we've just honoured at Imbolc, and her tree is the birch, which is very much associated with new beginnings and healing and poetry, all themes for this time of year. Let me know what you think about this theory. Let me know whether you have made this connection as well. There is a little mention of this in Pagan Dawn actually, which is what partly got me thinking about this, but it's been a little idea that I've been floating in my mind for a couple of years now, and I've meant to ask you on the Witching Week and haven't got round to it. So I thought, yes, when I saw that reminder this week, I thought, yes, I must bring that up. So let me know what your favoured deities are and your plants that you work with as well. It might be that there is a connection between the two. I would like to just say, in this little window, I just want to say thanks ever so much for watching. Thank you for watching last week, and thank you for watching at any point that you're here watching my videos. I do have a huge favour to ask. Most of you that are watching, and so it would seem watching regularly, haven't yet subscribed to my channel. It doesn't cost you anything. It's a quick click. And it really, really does help me, because if you're interested in these kind of topics and you like this video and you subscribe to this channel, what it does, it tells YouTube to push this out to other people who enjoy similar things. So it really, really makes a difference to me. And thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it. So our next topic on the list for today is Valentine's Day. That is coming up next week. It will be, I think, the day after the Witching Week next week. 14th of Feb. Do any of you celebrate? I'd love to know. All the cards and the gifts and the red and pink things are out in the shops at the moment. The supermarkets are full of them. We are halfway through February at that point, which for me is probably the most interesting thing about February the 14th, because where has the time gone? This year has just flown. But people often ask, is Lupercalia the pagan root of Valentine's Day? So there's a lot of talk about this. So Lupercalia was celebrated in ancient Rome around February the 15th. There have been some comparisons drawn in literature between Lupercalia and Valentine's Day as far back as Chaucer. However, Lupercalia was not a romantic event. It was not about courtly love. Some people did couple up. There were random couplings as a result of what they were honouring and marking, which I'll tell you about in a moment. Some people did fall in love and stay together, but this was a festival about cleansing and purging and purifying, and this was done via a lot of sacrifice. They were trying to encourage fertility and health, but this was not a love fest. So yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to say. It was a festival held in honour of a god called Lupercus, who was the Roman god of farmers. And there were various activities that went on at this time. Again, there were lots of sacrifices, which is why the colour red has come to be associated with Valentine's Day and the time around the middle of February. But that's about it. And it's really, really hard to see as well, looking elsewhere, looking in Christianity, who St. Valentine's Day is actually about. There's over 10,800 saints, and quite a few of those are called Valentine. All we know is that there was a Valentine martyred on the 14th of February. That's all we know. So yeah, there's little bits that you can pick from the ancient Romans and then the Christians, but it's hard to say. But let me know, will you be celebrating Valentine's Day? Personally, I think there is nothing wrong with having a reminder once a year for the slightly less romantic people to perhaps say thank you and show some appreciation for their loved one. I do think that works both ways though. I'm not talking about chocolates and flowers for the women. I'm talking about chocolates and flowers for the men too. I think it's a really nice time to spend some time loving yourself, if nothing else. I think if you don't have a partner, or you have a partner who's not particularly thoughtful, I think don't sweat it. I think show yourself the love that you deserve. I really think that's important. I think it's a great time for a really luxurious ritual bath with maybe rose petals and certain crystals and champagne and chocolates. Go all out. Go all out is what I say. You could carry a rose quartz in your pocket and remind yourself of the love and the respect that you should have for yourself. You could write a love letter to yourself, and you could keep that for next year and then open that next year and be reminded of the good feelings you have for yourself and you should have for yourself. You could write a love letter with a friend. You could swap. You could do a honey spell jar, easy for me to say, to sweeten someone's feelings towards you. So that might be your husband. Maybe you've had a row and you just want to sweeten them up a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that kind of magic. I think it's a bit different if you are trying to change the affections of someone that doesn't know you or doesn't like you or doesn't want to be with you or is an ex. But I think, you know, if you want there to be love between two people, personally, I don't see with a little bit of fiddling there. It's totally up to you, of course. You could do some sex magic, either with yourself or with a willing partner. So many lovely things that you could do to celebrate this time. I actually want to read a poem out of A Year of Pagan Prayer. It is a random poem related to Pan. Doesn't fit in with the Valentine's theme, but I thought it would be really nice to share this. So this is by Francis Ledwidge, who was an Irishman whose poverty forced him out of school at age 13, but who nonetheless became a noted poet before his death during World War I at the Battle of Passchendaele. So I thought this was really nice. And Francis Ledwidge was alive between 1887 and 1917. He knows the safe ways and unsafe, and he will lead the lambs to fold, gathering them with his merry pipe, the gentle and the overbold. He counts them over one by one, and leads them back by cliff and steep, to grassy hills where dawn is wide, and they may run and skip and leap. And just because he loves the lambs, he settles them for rest at noon, and plays them on his oaten pipe, the very wonder of a tune. So I thought that was really nice. It made me think almost of like the Pied Piper of Hamelin with his pipe, but it's about sheep. And I just thought that was really, really lovely. And it just has that Imbolc energy that we've just had, you know, that quickening of the land and the quickening of the baby in the womb, or the baby sheep. So yeah, I thought that was really, really lovely. We're going to do some cards, and then I'm going to wish you well for your witching week. I think we're going to just have one of these today. It's really nice doing tarot, but sometimes the impact of an oracle card can be really, really nice, and I'm really loving this deck at the moment. When I do tarot readings, I tend to give people a card from the Whispering Woods deck at the end. So let's see what we get. Let me know what you've been up to in the comments, what you have been doing this week, and whether you're all right after such an awful week. Okay, so I've picked one card at random from the deck, haven't seen what it says yet, and it says path. It says, wander on the path less travelled. What you find might surprise you. See if I can hold that up centrally. Path. Wander on the path less travelled. What you find might surprise you. So I'm going to remember that, because I think that applies to me as much as it does to you guys. Lovely bit of advice for our witching week. Wishing you an absolutely wonderful week ahead. I'll be back next Friday with another episode, sending you loads of love and blessings. Bye.